Welcome to Tapped In. My name is David Figueroa-Martinez of DFM Coaching, and today we're going to be discussing action over doubt. As an instructor, when I am rolling with new students or newer students, a couple of things happen sometimes. Either the student's so new that they don't know what the right course of action is, or there's such a skill gap between me and the student. Maybe they're blue, late blue, and they're not used to rolling with me. So they don't know where my game is going or what I'll do, that they kind of second guess themselves in both scenarios for different reasons. My biggest and most fun rounds, I should say, are with blue belts who have unabashed confidence in their decision making. And what I mean by that is oftentimes the wrestler or military personnel that are in jobs that require decisive decision making. I have a couple of teams guys that come in. I have a couple of people who have retired from the military or they're in maybe law enforcement. And it's important to have strong decision making. And when you make a decision, to follow through with it 100%. The combination of that and with a little bit of understanding of jiu-jitsu, blue belt level-ish, those are fun rounds because there's no hesitation in what they want to do. They move with a purpose, even if the decision may not be the most sound. They move with a purpose, with a goal in mind of off balancing, sweeping, submission, whatever it might be. But they are 1,000% committed to it, which is different than the student who is doubting themselves or doesn't have all the information, so doesn't really know how to proceed. So they kind of half-ass the decision. They make a decision to do something, but they're not committed. Being uncommitted and making a decision is just maybe a step above not making a decision itself, but it's not that far off. What happens is if I'm going against someone who is inadequate at making the decision that needs to be made, regardless of whether it's wrong or right, I start to crush you with my weight. I'm usually in a top position, and your inability to make a decision to save yourself then pushes me to continue the course of action that I'm at, which is usually pressure passing or transitioning to a different position or further into a submission, whatever. When you're doing jiu-jitsu, you really have to understand that paralysis is an enemy for you. And every time you sit in a position for too long, it's gradually getting worse. If it's not physically getting worse, like they're not transitioning to the next staging point, oftentimes you're being crushed underneath the weight or pressure of your opponent, that it's getting worse in the form of pressure and your gas tank and your ability to breathe. When I sit in a position, mount, S-mount, top a half, whatever, I'm looking to wear your gas tank out. So if you do nothing, I tend to do quote unquote nothing. I sit there and I expand my chest. I bring my chest further into the position and I crush you slowly until you decide at some point that this is far worse than making some mistake. So then you make a decision, and because you're so far into bad territory, that it's really a decision that I wanted you to make. So it's really important to understand your inability to make a decision is a decision. Your job is to understand what you don't want to happen and try to fight against it somehow. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to put your hand and your shield and your frames in the wrong areas. That is okay. But action, especially when it's 100% committed, becomes such a force within the round that it makes me have to adjust to things. So if I'm trying to, let's say I'm a criminal and I'm trying to break into a house, you may not know how to defend that house effectively, but the act of you maybe firing a warning shot gets my attention. Now I have decisions to make. So if you're in, let's say, half guard, you have the knee shield up and you're doing nothing, my weight's coming forward and doing the work for me. But maybe you decide that with the knee shield, I'm going to kick off to the right and off balance. That keeps me on my toes. That makes me think that something else is coming. I need to adjust. So start making decisions and committing to them. Your decisions are not always going to be right. My decisions aren't always right. There's times when I'm rolling with a blue, purple belt, sometimes a white belt, and I make a decision and I get into a bad position. I'm like, well, that did not go the way I intended. Let's fix this. It happens to all of us. And the quicker we understand that commitment to the decision is far better than non-committal. Action will always be beneficial because it's information. If you're on the newer side, your job, your main priority is to gain as much insight and understanding of all the positions you find yourself in. And that comes with action. That comes with failure, and that comes with attempts and further attempts and attempts off of that may not go anywhere. But at least you start understanding why the attempts didn't work. You start understanding why the attempts should have maybe been timed better, or the angle of the attempt was off, or you attempted, but you weren't serious about it. That's another data point. When I half-ass something, it often doesn't go well. But if I can really commit to whatever it is that I'm trying to do, and off-balancing, that often results in a sweep, or that frees up a leg, or it frees up the position so that I can then go to close guard or a different guard. But action will always be beneficial because it's information. The more data points you can collect over the course of your rounds, the better off you'll be, even if all the data points result in failures. Like I've said before, take this like a laboratory. Your job is to find all the failure points within your hypothesis, your research, so that you can start to find and whittle down to the things that are going to start to work. Another thing, and it goes in hand with like committal. Creating momentum, even if it's done incorrectly, will often create reactions that you actually need. Someone who maybe does a blast double. It's not perfect. He doesn't have a great grab of the legs, but because he committed 100% to it and he's taking me all the way off my starting point, I'm now in a defensive posture and I need to respond to this. Sometimes when a student passes a certain way, their technical know-how wasn't perfect. They didn't have a complete control of the hands or the knee shield or the legs, but because they were committed to it, they slid in, knee cut, it worked. So creating that momentum is super important when you're trying to off balance, sometimes when you're passing, and when you're trying to sweep from positions. So let's say I decide that I want to do, let's go with scissor sweep, very common. Most people know it. But I can't get them all the way over. But because I created so much momentum, the technique may not have been perfect. I may have faltered on some aspect of this technically, but they're so off balance that I can get the sweep anyway. Or because they're so off balance, they're not in a position to defend. When they start to come back, I go to triangle. And once I go to triangle, maybe I want to get the triangle choke. Maybe I want to go Kimura. Maybe I want to go omoplata. But I have options now because I forced some kind of momentum, which forced movement, reaction. And now I can take advantage of that. The momentum never has to be necessarily perfect. Oftentimes, a lot of my sweeps, even against other black belts or other people who aren't as experienced, aren't perfect. They're 70, 80% right. But because of the way that they were standing or I was kneeling or centered, it wasn't 100% efficient, but it got the movement that I needed in order to get to where I wanted to go. Commit. Understand that every action is information. Understand that you're going for momentum over perfection. And just commit. Commit to whatever it is that you're trying to do. And that committal often erases some of the technical deficiencies that you'll find. If we're going to give an example, consider this like simple, like anything else that you do in life. You decide to start a new venture and a new job. You're committed 100% to the job. You don't know the techniques. You don't know the procedures of the job. But because you're committed, and you can learn more effectively, opposed to getting to the job and not really caring and not giving a shit, and you're never really going to learn the job effectively. So start applying this to your jiu-jitsu. You're going to see a vast difference in how people respond. You're going to see more moments of success. That success may not be exactly what you wanted, but it opens up doors that you didn't anticipate. So just be committed. Commit to everything you're doing. If you said, I'm going to do the sweep, you make that decision, you go. If you decide I'm going to go for this submission, make the commitment that you're going to go for that and see what happens. Failure is not a bad thing, and it's always actually a beneficial aspect to your game. If you have any questions, concerns, you're in a spot where maybe you're not quite understanding the level of commitment that you should apply to a technique or whatever it might be, shoot me a message, dfm.2099 on Instagram or Threads. If you'd like to work with me, you can shoot me a message on there or come to dfmcoaching.com. I also have a school community that I recently set up. You can find it under DFM Coaching BJJ. I really want it to be a positive environment for people to learn jiu-jitsu, stick with jiu-jitsu, and like get better at asking questions and getting feedback. And we do video reviews on there from time to time. I really want to see people enjoying jiu-jitsu more, and this is my way of giving that back. For the time being, it's free. So if you're interested, please sign up. Any questions, hit me up. Thank you so much.